Hello, everyone. It's the Mad Catter again, and this episode, I think I'm going to do something that I promised myself I wasn't going to do, which is kind of a little political, I guess. Some people might consider it political. Anyway, it's been eating at me for a few days now. I read this article recently titled Jordan Peterson and Fascist Mysticism by someone, I'm not even going to say his name right. I know I'm not. Pankaj Mishra. Anyway, I'm personally a fan of Peterson. But first off, like reading this article was at times worse than trying to read Shakespeare. I'll admit I'm no genius, but I found it maddening that like a few paragraphs I had to read over and over again just to get more than like a surface understanding of what this guy was trying to say. I prefer things like textbooks, like to skip all the fluff, all the pageantry from pretentious sorts of people. But I found it kind of crazy that this guy would accuse Peterson of not only fascistic beliefs, but pretty much calling him a bigot and a racist because he has some shared beliefs with people who are kind of thought of today as bigots or whatever. And I think it's like kind of that guilt by association thing. He's trying to make people guilty by association in a sense, and it kind of bothered me kind of deeply actually for a couple of days. It had me questioning whether or not I should tell anyone about any shared beliefs that I have with anybody who was controversial by any means, because I was afraid of people seeing me as a bigot, which I'm not. I I don't consider myself one, although some people would say that I have microaggressions and all that crazy stuff. But yeah, so like even though this Mishra guy probably doesn't even consider himself a racist, I'm sure he doesn't consider himself a racist. But I felt that his reference to Peterson's Native American friend as a noble savage was completely uncalled for. I think it shows his character. I think it shows how far this Mishra person will sink to make someone else feel bad. So later I'm watching some random Joe Rogan clip sometime yesterday, and he mentioned Peterson, and then later on he was talking about, I think he mentioned H.P. Lovecraft. And it just kind of clicked in my head because recently I'd heard somewhere else that H.P. Lovecraft is considered or is a racist. I don't know. I never got into any of that stuff, but as a teenager I did read a little bit of his stuff, and I remember the crazy stuff, the Mad Arab or something. It just went right over my head. I didn't know what the heck was going on. But I think I just read it because everybody else was talking about it. It was cool. Anyway, like suddenly it occurred to me that as far as this Mishra guy is concerned, Joe Rogan would be considered a bigot and guilty by association. You know? I mean, and it's just kind of like that seems crazy to me because I don't think I'm like as close to being certain he's not a racist as I'm close to being certain that, of existence, essentially, because I don't even know the guy, but I've seen enough of his interviews and enough of his shows, and he really puts himself out there, so he's not a bigot. So this guy Mishra is like kind of making me mad at this point. A little more angry than I already was, I should say. Or at least confused. I guess the confusion kind of leads to anger, like, why am I confused? Is this your fault or is it mine? Anyway, so finally I decided to see what kind of other offerings this Mishra guy had and discovered this gem called The Crisis of Modern Masculinity. I'm going to link that and the other one below, and some episodes from Joe Rogan and Peterson and Bret Weinstein. But anyway, in this crisis of modern masculinity, he mentions Peterson once again, and the topic is pretty much the same. He's citing examples of violence and wrong thinking to show how toxic masculinity is. And from the way he represents Peterson throughout all of his writings, I can tell he's either like never seriously watched an uncut interview, or he has some deeper issues with Peterson and other men like him. And I don't know, what's even worse for me as far as this goes is that I'm a huge fan of like science fiction, horror, comedy, cartoons, animation, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I love art. I love self-expression of all kinds. I love I'd love to go to Burning Man. I mean, that sounds freaking awesome. Uh, but like I know that people in entertainment can be very vocal about their political views. And it still made me feel like, even knowing this, it still made me feel that, people that I followed for years, even decades, were like, it made me feel shunned by them because they were all retweeting this Mishra article as though it was some kind of great work. And I found it kind of disturbing because some of these people were comedians who rely entirely on their freedom of expression and speech. And they were fine with bashing someone who gives lectures on the importance of free speech. It just didn't really does not compute. Sorry, IT crowd reference. Anyway, I think that like everything, we each adopt what we agree with and then leave the rest behind. Like, I can't agree with everything that any one person says. And, I just agree with what seems true and then I move on. It's kind of like saying, like, if a Christian and an atheist both agree that the sky looks blue, well, they don't both believe that the sky looks blue for the same reasons. It's just because the atheist agrees with the Christian doesn't mean that he or she suddenly has all the beliefs of this Christian and vice versa. And so, in the same way, it's kind of like this Mishra guy is telling you that if you believe one crumb of what a bigot says, then you too are a bigot. And I refuse to believe that. I refuse to cut my nose off to spite my face. Like, I don't believe in this whole guilt by association thing. And if I acted this way, I'd have to delete every entertainer from my Twitter feed, get rid of every piece of art that I own or created, get rid of every toy I have and every movie I have, until I'm living in a little tiny bubble where no one disagrees with me ever because I'm the only one there. Like, yeah, and that's an extreme, but it's like that's the road that this behavior leads down. Okay, that's the end result if you just want to continue down that same, path, that having this tunnel vision, the way you see the world. So anyway, that's why I will never disable my comment section. Like, speech and expression have been my passion since I was a, purple-haired, leather jacket-wearing metalhead in the 90s. So, go ahead and leave your comments below, and, I always enjoy reading your thoughts. And like and subscribe if you're feeling generous. I don't know. Until next time, I'll be off having another random experience.